Hello everybody, thank you for tuning in, and I want to start off by firstly acknowledging that my intention from doing all of these videos is to keep it 100% real all of the time. And I want you to know that that is truthful, because I have done videos where I've tried to script it, I've tried to plan in advance, and in all honesty, I just keep getting in my own way. So you've clearly clicked on this video because of the title of the video, and only a select few kind of people are actually going to click on this video, and I will explain why. But I really do want to preface this by saying everything I do will be completely authentic and real. I will share my own experiences, my own failures along the way, and I just want to get that out the way before I get in my own way. Okay, so without further ado, let's focus on the title of the video. And the title of the video is, of course, You Are Not Lost, You're Between Identities. This is not going to be for the people that are not interested in self-development. And besides, I know you haven't clicked on this video because you wouldn't. You would see the title and you wouldn't even click on it. I also know this is not for the kind of people that have just begun their self-development journey. So, the people that have actually clicked on this video, and you, right now, you're on this video because you're someone that's actually very similar to me. And that is somebody that has gone on this self-development journey for a few years. You've gone through various stages. You've gone through stages where you've done nothing but hustled and you've worked really hard. You've gone through periods where you focus more on meditation. You've gone through periods where you've had to focus more on acceptance and aligning to your authentic desires. And this is all really good. Now, this is probably the most confusing stage of self-development, because this is really the point where you have an identity lag. So you've done a lot of internal work. Great. That is a really good thing. However, the most frustrating thing is your external environment hasn't quite caught up to your internal self yet. Now, you can explain this on a really metaphysical standpoint and explain time and energy and how all that operates, but I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole today. We can save that for another day. Today, we're going to simply focus on what the title is and explain a bit more about the different identities and why there is a lot of conflict between the two. So, of course, you'll have your old self evolving from that. We all understand that as we're developing, we had that self that we didn't really like anymore. Hence why we entered this journey, because we're on a journey to change. However, there's a paradox between returning the becoming, and these two are very interesting because they're both integral to your growth, but they both kind of contradict each other in the same way. So I'll start off with the return element. So I was watching a video the other day with Guy Ritchie on Joe Rogan's podcast, and Guy Ritchie was talking about how you must master your own kingdom, and later on he was talking about actually returning to yourself, and the example he used was the prodigal son. I don't know if you know the prodigal son. It is quite well known, but just to briefly explain it in case you don't know it, the prodigal son is where the father says to the two sons, go out and basically use my money to your own good use. And the two sons go out. One son, the way Guy Ritchie explains it, is He goes out, basically causing mayhem, sniffing coke off strippers' tits. That's how he explained it. And then the other kid, the other son, he was very good, did his job, used his money very wisely. But the first son to return was the son that was causing trouble. And here's where it gets interesting. This is because he was lost and then he was found. And the father is actually you. So you have one son, the other son, which was the good boy, that's the intelligent mind. The other son went out, wanted to explore the world, and basically came to the conclusion that he can't escape himself. And this is what we have to understand, because I've had a lot of time to think about this, and I've thought, you know, I've for a long time thought it's about becoming a new self, becoming a whole new identity, but really you can't escape yourself. You need to internally return to yourself, to what you value, because we all have core desires. So you have to first return back to what your core desires are and operate from that. Then externally, it's about becoming a new self. So this is where it's about creating the new behaviors, the habits, the job or career that aligns with your authentic desires now. And that's where it will all take shape in its own fashion. So that's the paradox in itself, the returning versus the becoming. And I do believe you must return to yourself first in order to externally change the way you want it to be, basically becoming your new self. So that is the paradox there. Now, one of the biggest things within this stage is probably the lack of certainty in telling people or showing the world what you actually want and who you are. That is always going to be the biggest battle, because there's always going to be the external forces, society expectations telling you who you should be. This is who you should be. This is how you fit in here. This is what you want. And that's always going to be the battle. But this is why it's so important to return to yourself, to actually understand, oh, okay, this is what I'm actually interested in. This is what I'm actually passionate about. And that way you can start from there. That's how you start. You build the roots off that. That's how you build the roots. And then you can expand that and branch off it. And you can decide wherever you want to go with that. But those are the roots. That's why you have to return to yourself, then become. Okay? So I hope that makes a bit of sense. But there's going to be, let me rein it back in for a second. So we're talking about this stage, and I would say it's the most confusing stage in self-development. And it's where you're between the identities. You're sort of in this middle area where your old self is over here. You probably have friends you've been hanging around for a long time, and you think, I actually am, not from an egotistical point of view, but you know that the sort of habits, the goals, the beliefs aren't really aligning anymore with those people you're hanging around with. So you're kind of caught up in this area, yet your external world isn't really reflecting the sort of people you want to be hanging around more often. So this is why you kind of feel torn in this middle ground area. You've got the old friends, the people you felt comfortable with a long time ago, probably were friends with them out of insecurities of being alone, and you're in a weird stance because, well, you might be afraid of, well, if I completely let them go in my life, well, who do I have then? You know, I might be alone, but that might be essential for you to let go and it is a bit of a letting go process for you to become the new self. So that is a key point. Then you've also got the jobs, the 9 to 5 jobs, the jobs you don't want to be doing, and you know you're more capable of. You know that within yourself because you've done the internal work. You have the inner confidence to know that you are better than that. Yet your external world isn't reflecting what you know to be true. So this is why it gets very frustrating, because you could be like, well, I know I'm better than what I am currently doing, but how do I get to that point where I am actually proud of what I'm doing? I am fulfilled. I am actually helping people. It's a very difficult thing to let go of, because you have to question, well, why am I still doing this job? Why did I pick it in the first place? Probably, like for a lot of people, it's for financial reasons, and completely understand that. You need things for certain periods of your life. You might have needed it for the stability back then, and it's given you a sense of structure, and that has given you the safety to then think, okay, I have that now. I feel safe, and now it's about progressing and evolving from that because I know I'm better. You can give many other examples for this, but I just wanted to give 2 examples there of things that could be potentially holding you back from the old self. Now, where it becomes tricky, and it's probably the hardest part in actually evolving into your new self, you've done the work internally, you've possibly done a bit of meditating, you do exercise, you do healthy habits, you eat healthily. So you could be thinking, well, why haven't I materialized what I've been visualizing about in my meditation? Or I've been trying to tap into frequencies and try and materialize it that way. Well, it's because the truth is you don't have enough self-trust. And what I mean by that is you haven't stacked up enough evidence in establishing yourself as this new identity. So that's why you're caught up in this, you're hovering around in this middle area, and you're kind of oscillating between the two, because, well, the old self over here, it feels familiar. You know this very well. And at the end of the day, when you're around this area, you get the sense that, what, I'm better than this. And that can work well or not so well, depending on what you do with that information. You can either look at it and say, okay, well, I know I'm better than this, so that is going to help me push forwards to do something that I actually want to do in my life. Or you can go, well, it makes me feel good that I actually do feel better than these people I'm hanging around with, or this sort of job I'm doing. It's giving me a sense of I'm better. That's the ego getting in the way. So you want to acknowledge that first of all and be like, okay, that's the ego talking. You can talk, but we're not going to take your advice. So when you want to become your new self, it is really about stacking up the evidence that you are the person that you say you are, and that is doing the things you set out to do. So everybody's going to have different goals. My goals will look very different to your goals, and that is completely okay. I mean, it'd be strange if we all had the same goals, because nobody would be unique then. But what you really need to get clear on is, what do I actually envision myself as? Forgetting about society's expectations, financial reasons, whatever. Who and what do I want in 10 years, 20 years time? What do I see myself doing? Where am I living? you get the picture, and you've probably done a lot of visualization behind this, and this is the point of the video. It's really about the frustration of, well, why am I not there yet? And that is because you haven't built enough consistent proof of evidence that you are actually that person. And it's probably a sense of ownership and courage in being who you actually are and saying, this is what I want, and I'm going to get what I want. And do you know what? A lot of people are really afraid of being their true selves because, you know, that getting judged for being who you really are, that's painful. So I'm going to round off this video now because I don't want to ramble on for too long, but there's essentially traps you need to be aware of. Fear, negotiating yourself with fear, because it will come into play and it will question you. It will question you, do you really want that? Are you ready for this? Hold on, you need to do more thinking. You know, you're not ready for this. And you got to be careful of that because you can end up in this loop of endless introspection. And I've done it myself, where you can keep reflecting on things, but that is only so good. And it's great to be self-aware because you can only change things once you're self-aware. However, to really materialize the things that you know you're capable of, that takes action. And action, I know you don't want to hear this, and I know it's something I probably glossed over, but action, intentional action is the key here. It's not forced. I'm not forcing you to do anything, nor do you should feel like you're being forced to do something, but you know there will be things on your mind that you know you should be doing that will help contribute to your longer term goals, but you're hesitating. You're hesitating because you're feeling pulled in this middle ground area between your old self and your new self, and the hesitation is costing you. And what I really want you to take from this video is stop hesitating. You're not lost. You know what you want. You're in this in-between stage. You've progressed. You've come a long way. But ultimately, you need to take the intentional action. And that is what is really going to cement yourself in the identity, in the vision that you want in your life. And that's all I have to say. So hopefully you got something out of this video. I'm going to be doing a lot more consistent videos from now on. And please drop a like, comment, whatever you want to do. I'll speak to you soon. Ciao.